So back in the fall, I made a video using a vegetable steamer as a wood stove. Well, it turned out that that video was very popular with people, and I'll put a link right up here to the original video for you to go back and see the original tests. Well, as a result of that video, I'd received a lot of feedback on things that I could do with this to enhance it and make it a better performer in the woods. Well, today, I thought I would share with you some of those ideas. If you're interested, stay tuned. Okay, so what I'm going to do is actually set up and use the vegetable steamer as a stove with wood pellets today, because that was one of the requests, to see how this would work with wood pellets. So I am in a fire pit. There's a fire pit here because it is a cold, windy day here, and I just want to take advantage of the fire pit as a windbreak. So one of the things that most people made comment on, and I looked at all the comments and thought that there was value in all of them, and was how we could do better support a pot on top of the stove once the stove is in operation. Because as you'll see in the original video, I used a tripod, which will be the subject of another video, but I used a tripod to suspend the pot over the fire. And a lot of people had suggested ideas and ways that we could use crossbars, either from tent pegs or skewers or any number of things. One of the most common was a little cake pan, the little type you might find in the baking stores, or in this case I would look for them in the thrift stores. Some type of a pan that would rest on top, and they usually have little feet that would be just larger than the circular diameter of the stove, and should keep the stove from expanding as you're using it. Well, I went out and I looked for those pans or those cake stands, and I didn't find one, but I found something not too dissimilar. And this is a trivet that you might sit on the counter. Has little wooden feet. I suppose it could also be a cake pan stand. But yeah, I picked this up for less than $1 at the thrift store, and I thought that this was about the right diameter. The little wooden feet can probably come off, and I probably will take them off at some point. I also like the fact that it was a little heavier gauge wire than a lot of the cake pans are. So this will sit right on top, and I can expand the stove out to the point where they engage the legs, where now has wooden feet on it, but again I can take the wooden feet off. And it looks like it would make a good grill for resting a pot on, maybe even cooking a piece of meat or something else on top of that as well. So that is what I'm going to go with for this stove, to use it as a pot rest. So what were some of the other ideas? Well, one idea I thought was kind of clever, if you have another stove with you, is to use the whole thing spread out as a grill in itself. So if you have maybe a way of supporting it above some coals, you could use this to grill your meat on directly, or maybe over a firebox stove or something similar. Maybe even one of the Solo stoves or Lixada wood gas stoves. This might actually work as a grill, so that's not a bad thought. It's unlikely for me to be carrying two of them at the same time, but if you have both of them, then sure, why not? A couple of people mentioned having something underneath the stove to prevent scoring of the land. Now, honestly, I don't know that that's going to be an issue. If you look at it, the holes are very small. It wouldn't allow for much in the terms of live coals or ashes to fall through, but there's still going to be heat generated and radiate through this. So the suggestion is that I put a piece of tin foil down, very small, very light piece of tin foil that I could pack away with the stove, and it would prevent scarring. It would also act as a bit of an insulation on the cold, frozen ground like this fire pit is right now. Well, as I was going out the door this morning, I didn't reach for a piece of tin foil. I actually reached for an aluminum pie plate. May not be what I'll carry on a regular basis, but I think for today it's going to work. As long as we can get it there pretty stable, yeah, that looks like it's going to be pretty good. So, what was another suggestion? To use the vegetable steamer as a windscreen for an alcohol stove. So I have a little homemade alcohol stove right here that will set in the center, and I could set my pot right on top of that. Now, in looking at this, what I'm thinking is the smaller or lower the alcohol stove, the better. So a Trangia or anything taller might bring the pot above the level, or the stove above the level of the windscreen effect. So you're going to lose some of that windscreen effect. But in this case, it looks like it's going to do well. In this sense, this is a homemade stove that cost me virtually nothing. Then I thought it went with the theme of the thrift store finds. But today, we're all about wood pellets. So I'm going to set up with the wood pellets, and I have a piece of homemade fire starter, which you can also find in a link in a video, which I'll put up in the corner as well, if you want to know some about how I made the homemade fire starter. We'll set it up and we'll get it going, because as I look up at the sky right now, I think I'm due for snow I wasn't expecting, and I want to get this going and get some lunch on before the snow starts. Okay, nothing too terribly creative. Something I haven't done in a long time is use a match. So these are some really, really old stormproof matches, long before the UCO matches came on the market, and the Striker, so I've kept them. Here is my wax and wood chip fire starter, and I'm going to use that to get it started, hopefully. And once I do, I'll try to pile some of the wood chips on it. It'll take a few minutes for it to get going, but let's see if we... All right, it's a good thing it's sheltered from the breeze, because there is quite a breeze going on here. So that likely will take a few minutes for that, first off, the wood chip and wax fire starter to get really established, and then the wood chips or the wood pellets to be engaged. So what I'll do is let that go for a few minutes and then bring it back. All right, as you can see, it didn't take too long for the pellets to engage nicely. Wasn't quite sure if the pellets would work as well as I had hoped, but they are. They're a little slow taking off, but pretty much a maintenance-free fire once they get going. My lunch is cooked. Time to take it off, put it in a bowl, enjoy that, and get some water on for coffee. And after that, we'll wrap this video up. All right, what I thought I would do just before we wrap the video up is I let the stove go completely out. I just wanted to see how much ash was left. There's still a little bit of heat in the metal. That's cold enough to take off. You can see very little ash left from the wood pellets, meaning for a complete burn. Let's see what's underneath it. Yeah, I can lift that up. Okay. Little bit of dust. Did fall through, but it's just dust. Oh, this is interesting. Underneath there was frozen ice in this pit, and the ice is soft. So it meant there was some heat going through. So maybe it is a good idea to have something underneath the stove, or the steamer stove, when you have it on ground. That may be suspect and you may be a little worried about. All right, now let's wrap this video up. All right, so another good demonstration on how the vegetable steamer wood stove works, this time with wood pellets, proving once again that wood pellets are a good alternative fuel for those days when you can't find enough natural material dry enough to use in your stove, or on days where you just want to have something very quick and you can have those pellets. And as I showed before, they store inside the steamer without taking up any space, so that the whole thing can go together. Now, the trivet, I guess it was, or the cake rest thing that I used, did work well again as a grill on top of this. And it did show also that there is some value in having a tinfoil pan underneath it. If not to catch ash, at least to reflect some of the heat back up and protect it from the cold surface below. So just a couple of options. And one thing I learned when I did the original video is that the viewers oftentimes have the best suggestions, and I really benefited from all those suggestions. So once again, let me open this up. If you liked what you saw, but you think there's a few more things that we could do with this wood stove, this vegetable steamer wood stove, then by all means include them in the comments below. And until next time, get out and explore and take that path less traveled. It'll make all the difference. Bye for now.